go to the bigger.
Okay, we are live streaming now, just so everybody knows, in case you wanted to know.
Okay.
Better late than never.
Okay. Let me just keep moving along I'm already past page 16, 17, 18. Well, I'm just going to stop here at 20, and just to show that right now, with some unknowns, I'm looking, so far the budget appears to be a little less than 5% of an increase over the current fiscal year 2020, 4.69%. I actually believe that.
What was that last, what did you say for the percentage?
Page 20.
Page 20,
Yeah, 20.
on expenditures. Yes, that's
What
very.
was the percentage that?
Well, yeah, 4.69.
Great, wow, that's.
Yes.
That's better than this morning.
Yes, much better. I took my treasurer's advice, I plugged in the numbers.
Yeah.
And they balanced out just like she said they would. So the point I'm making about this is that, again, there are some things that are still fluid and not fully determined and fleshed out. But just what we have here, I think this shows a modest increase, and there are some things that we're really going to address. And I just think that when we get it all said and done, this number is not going to substantially increase at all, and in fact may decrease percentage. And that's what I wanted to bring forward to the board tonight. That I actually believe that for the most part, Midcoast Solid Waste can move forward in 2021 and not see a substantial increase over what we've budgeted for our current fiscal year, to not provide any additional burden to the 4 towns that support and subsidize our operations.
Now,
I don't have revenue, and it's a question about revenue. I wasn't sure how I forecast revenue just 4 months into my current fiscal year for 2021. I mean, I know I need to look at my revenue for 2020 in order to do that, but I don't know if I have enough time in just 4 months to I mean, as accurate, I need to be more accurate than just 4 months of revenue.
well,
I'm not even at the end of November yet to show.
I think if you look at the couple, 2 or 3 previous years of revenue and
Well, Bill, you're right.
are intentionally tied to revenue lines. So if, for the most part, if the amount of, some of our biggest lines are tipping and hauling, and so and those are tied to revenue items. So as the expense for, the more trash we take to EcoMaine, as long as we're charging for it when it comes in, we try to design the budget and our bag fees so that and the price per ton, so that equals out on its
Well,
own.
my concern, and that's all true, and I fully agree.
But it has to be always
Yes,
evaluated.
it's just that as of September 1, we increased substantially our per ton rate from $100 to $140. Our pricing for mattresses, our pricing for brush, just as of
So in the
September
landfill.
1. And I just kind of would, and I'm not sure what the bags are going to do as far as their sales. So
No, you're right that with the landfill, we're in a difficult position to guess, because we did something major by increasing those fees significantly, also under the assumption that Rockland was going to stop taking stuff. And then they came up with that surprise 12,000 cubic yards.
12,500, yes.
So it's very possible that we would see a sizable decrease, even though we have bigger fees.
Yes, well, you're underscoring just what my
Right,
point is.
and then,
How do I, just from September 1 to November 1, how am I going to?
What are we seeing so far? What's your sense of?
It's hard to really discern. I just think I need more than 60 days
Yeah, I think the thing to do is probably
to
go
see
for
a
that.
see a trend.
We're going to have to budget, I think, conservatively in terms of expecting to lower revenue for the landfill. And we hope, with municipal stuff, we always hope to be pleasantly surprised, but we always under budget for revenue in general, just so that we're not, we can't rely on some kind of blockbuster year in the landfill.
That's why I'm going to be heavily reliant on the finance committee and your expertise as our treasurer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'll be curious to hear what you end up thinking about the impact of that fee change and whether just the anecdotal, what you hear.
Well, you touched on one thing, and that was Rockland.
Right.
And of course, some of the fees, as I understand it, was to create somewhat of a deterrent.
Right,
Yeah, and now that there's a second place to go to,
right.
well, they're going back, so, but now they're only going to be landfilling for another 12 to 18 months at the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
So
what are they saying, like, what's Bob saying? Are we seeing I haven't looked carefully at that line. Are we still getting big projects, or?
No, Bob, no, it's nothing really outstanding that I've heard from my staff at all as far as tonnage coming in. I don't know, Beth, if you gotten another perspective or point of view. And of course, we're going into the time of the year where we're off peak. So that's another thing that impacts me versus what happens during this height of the spring and the summer. And, just coming in at the end of that, it's another thing I would like to experience myself and be able to speak to myself. So trying to forecast revenues out and have this budget approved by this time next month.
But
I think only the
you've got data. You've got previous year's data
Yes,
to look at, and you
I
can
have.
average that.
Right, go by the tonnage.
Yeah, you can
granted.
do that, and you can get in the ballpark. And,
Yes.
And we know that we've taken a big swing at the fees, so we knew we were going to take a hit, possibly take a hit there. I think what our theory was to slow things down a little bit and also stop the people who aren't taxpayers from coming in. So I think you've got data you can rely on to get in the ballpark. This is a budget, all subject to change,
Yes.
and I think you can do that.
And that's what I plan to do.
You've got some limited time to reflect on there, but you do have data to reflect on.
Yes.
And basically, that's what a budget is.
Right, and it's just one category. I mean, I do see a lot of variability in that one, the landfill revenue category, but the rest of it should be not such a wild card. It should just be in the normal.
Fully understand.
Trash comes in, trash goes out.
I'm just coming from a different perspective, budget-wise. I'm only 4 months into my fiscal year, and I have to present a final budget for 2021 while I'm just 4 months into 20.
Yeah, that's
And,
an annoying part of our.
I have to have it in by January 1, when I thought I probably would have, a March, April,
Oh, I see.
We don't have the luxury of that.
Oh, I understand.
We
I
have to
understand.
add to the other
No,
channel.
it's so that option.
It is.
It is what it is. So for me, it's just getting into that mindset. I tend to like to have firm, confident numbers, and I don't like to tend to speculate too much and forecast. But that's just what I've been coming from. So
Last year's
yes,
data
but I will assure the board that the numbers we plug in are going to be based on our best assessments, based on what we've been doing. It won't just be some wild card guess.
So
It'd be interesting to see if the middle school, have you had anybody contact you about the Camden Middle School? They're going to go into their next phase of demolition. A lot of our landfill stuff seems to sometimes be driven by big projects and whether they, when they happen and.
Well, we had
go
one of the construction guys wanted to bring us dirt, but it wasn't clean fill.
Right.
He wanted to bring us all of the overburden and spoils that was full of concrete, rebar, and other, and he was trying to gift us with it. And, yes. And then even when he was talking about possibly paying for by the truckload and not by the ton, we have no use for that.
Yeah.
We can't use it as cover, and we have no place to stockpile.
to move this along, I would suggest that, I think there's no question that we need to have a final budget that we can vote on December 18th, okay? So that's only a few weeks away.
Yes,
And so you have to do a lot of work yet.
yes,
You have to meet with the Finance Committee some more.
yes.
And we can't do that in the last 2 days before the meeting. I mean, we need to.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to be doing that. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think that what you need to do is coordinate with the finance committee, suggest some dates that we might be able to get together by counting back, when you're going to have all your numbers and count back from that and start sending some emails to us with some suggested dates.
Got it.
Because we've got, as municipal officials, we got tons of meetings and we can't just drop everything last minute, as you know, so.
And I definitely don't want to do that to anyone.
And we can't let that December 18th date slide.
And we won't. I know that I did ask for a 30-day extension to January 31, but that was denied.
I mean, we actually, as a board, don't have the authority to grant that extension. We have to go back to each town. And because it's, since it's.
Past December 31, because.
January, he had asked to January 31.
December 31 is
December
what's in our
31 is
bylaws.
did I say December and not January?
Yeah.
And then I misspoke.
No.
To go, but we don't have the authority. It's a matter of going to each select board and asking for that extension, which, it's really to be used in extreme circumstances, since it's part of that interlocal agreement that we,
The towns do have to have it to put in their budget, so.
And I would just like to add, as governance committee chair, that our bylaws provide we have to give 5 days business notice if we're going to have special meetings. And that hasn't always been done in this organization. And it's high time we started, making sure that we paid more attention to our bylaws on certain of these things. So it's not just as easy as just saying, oh, well, let's have an extra meeting between December 18th and 31 and let's call it 2 days in advance, because that's not what the bylaws permit.
Yeah, it's good for the board to have a conversation every so often with ourselves, just voicing.
We do that at the town level.
Yeah, we
With
just.
regularity. We do. We have a conversation.
We did that last
with
night
how
at the
we're
select
doing
board,
and
too.
how we're doing things. So,
Yeah.
Right.
we do, just for reminders.
Exactly, right.
Did anybody want to speak any more about the draft? I think I have my marching orders. I think I'm clear.
I mean, there's some, you took the words right out of my mouth, Wendy, that's exactly right. Some of the things that we were looking to do could potentially be a good fit for the reserve accounts, like equipment maintenance or the audit leaves a few lingering issues with reserve funds, and we have a number of reserve funds, and one of those was landfill development, which years ago a decision was made, and what's not clear with the auditor is whether a decision was officially made by the board to close out the landfill development reserve fund and turn that into a station maintenance reserve fund. And I think it was also a conversation between Jody and the previous manager of like that was going to be done, and we should revisit that basically, because we have a few different reserve funds. We've got, equipment reserve, which is really nice and healthy. So making sure that we use that when appropriate. There was also an equipment replacement. And so the board, we're probably not totally prepared for that conversation tonight, but the finance committee should, and really, the manager too, because the finance, it shouldn't just be the finance committee doing everything. We should probably, as a board, task the manager with looking at some of those reserve funds, and we can do that in conjunction with the finance committee if that makes sense. But so that we're making sure that we make use of them, and also that we close up these issues that the auditor has of wanting to know whether the board actually voted to. We've got a few reserve funds hanging in the balance with unknown status.
If you notice, there are no capital outlay requests in this draft.
I think the finance committee and the manager should look at those and bring a recommendation to the board. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
It does end up, there is a ton of stuff, because it's like the auditor has this whole long list of things.
And here again, that's not something that's going to be done in just a
Yes.
couple of meetings, but it's something we need to.
I did want to throw this question out. Is it any possibility that I could meet again with the finance committee before the holiday next week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say. That was not appropriate.
Like Monday?
Yes, I can come in on a Monday. Well, yeah, that'd be great.
Also,
I
there's
can
some
do-
that can probably be done over email too, if we make a list of the questions.
Okay.
I do think there were some things in that made the better task to the strategic and capital planning a little bit. I know there was the lingering issue of the trailer and whether it made sense. I know you didn't feel like you wanted to put that money in the budget.
Trailer? Oh, the
And
trailer.
Like, I didn't feel comfortable, like, I don't have an opinion as a finance
We
committee.
talk about that, that's,
I want to know what the strategic and capital planning committee thinks, like, okay, safe to take out the 70,000 for the
Yeah.
trailer.
Well, I did remove it from this draft.
yeah,
And
no, we did talk about that in our last meeting.
You did, I can't tell if you're saying did or didn't.
We did.
We did.
We met,
And-
we got our report coming up, so.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
a
maybe we should-
strategic and capital planning report coming up that'll outline that.
Yeah.
Some entanglement with the budget there, but
If Brady would like to meet with us next week before the holiday starts, I think we should try to make ourselves available because we want to give him as much support as we can so that he can make this deadline, so.
Yeah, that's why I asked
Yeah,
him.
I've got something going at 3. I got a conference call at 3, but otherwise I could be available
On Monday.
on Monday. It might be in Portland on Tuesday, so Monday for me is better. Not to sit here and do our calendars, but we all are here.
The only thing that I have on Tuesday is a tour of Penobscot Energy, PERP, on the 26th. But the 25th and the 27th are open to me. And I know it's holiday, I know, because if not, then it would have to follow up after.
the 25th I can do, the 27th I cannot.
I can do the 25th. But what time?
So that's Monday. Monday's a yes then.
Okay.
I cannot do it in the morning.
Oh, we have to do it, just flesh out
I have a
the
meeting
time,
at 10.
PM, AM.
Yeah,
We do it like 1?
as long as, yeah. Hi.
There you go.
Within 2 hours.
Oh,
I have a
yeah, that's
conference
me.
call at 3, so.
Try to, no,
Is that short?
no, I have to pick my kids up from school. And that's not too short. I think we should, I thought it was nice how we really tried to stick to that.
1 to 2
time. Yes.
on Monday, the
1
25th.
PM.
Yes.
1 p.m.
Yep. And of course, anybody else who wants to join us is more than welcome. At the facility, right? Is that what we said?
Yes,
Yep.
just like this morning, yes. I'll get an email out.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any other questions or anything anybody wants to, we're all set on that for right now? Go on to the director and executive committee comments and updates.
I have an update. I got some information, and I think David got this as well from our town administrator. So just wanted to let you know that we've been informed that the Lincolnville Central School is receiving a grant from Eco Maine that will be used towards composting and composting hauling fees. Lincolnville Central School has apparently partnered with Scrap Dogs Composting on the project, with possibly some compost returning to the school for use in the school garden. Just a little bit more information on that. As we understand it, the grant amount to Lincolnville Central School is $600. The grant amount is roughly equivalent to that Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation expends to deposit 11 tons of waste at Eco Maine, let alone the transportation costs. If successful, the program will divert food waste from going to Eco Maine. So in essence, Eco Maine provided us a grant to reduce what we send to them, thus lowering our costs again. So instead of the send us more waste so we can bill you more attitude, they are providing a grant to help us send them less. Good deal all around.
Nice.
And hopefully we'll sign up for another 20 years of,
Yeah.
So that just came
remember to
the
say
other
that
day.
at town meeting.
Yep.
That's awesome, though.
That's all I got.
Is that it? All right. And we got Matt's charitable
Oh, so-
donation.
I'm,
We know about.
are we still on director comments?
Oh, we
Or
can
oh,
be,
so-
yeah.
Sorry.
something
Just briefly, this was partially my oversight as well. We had talked about putting the extended producer responsibility bill back on the agenda for this. For this time. I talked about it a little bit last time, that the NRCM the Natural Resources Council of Maine is trying to get towns to sign on to a resolution in support of a new law that would try to basically try to help municipalities reduce the cost of their recycling programs and transfer some of that cost onto the producers of the packaging. I think for Camden, unless anybody has major objections to it, since they do want towns to move forward, I think we're at the point in Camden where we would feel very comfortable supporting it. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look at it. I wouldn't want it to do you have any strong negative feelings or anything?
Oh, no,
to read about
not
this?
at all. When I was at the MRRA conference 2 weeks ago in Bangor,
right,
it sounded to me pretty positive that this may pass through the state and put some of the burden, more of the burden, on the manufacturer producers than to have the end user, the citizens, or the processors such as us to have to bear all that burden.
Right. I mean, we're just constantly trying to play this game of catch up at the transfer station level where different types of materials are brought to us, and then, oh, we have to try to figure out a way to recycle it. It should really be the other way around, where if the responsibility is on them to create packaging that is recyclable.
Yes.
And so my sense was that there's a feeling that this will be a big fight because there's a lot of money involved in trying to maintain the the way things are. So they do want, that's why they're so eagerly reaching out to municipalities to support it. And I just want to me, everything, having looked at it a lot, I feel it's something that we should definitely support, but didn't want Camden to go ahead and do that if the group collectively here is for some reason against it. So as long as it makes you feel like it's a positive
Oh, absolutely.
thing for you.
I understand that the state of Massachusetts has already passed a similar law.
Right. Yep.
And they're building this fund that can go to help subsidize transfer stations, landfills, and departments' cost in dealing with these materials, these recyclable materials. Yes.
I have a question about that, this whole idea, and that would be if you're talking about the companies reducing the way that they package things, if what they replace it with is more expensive, that will go back onto the consumer. Would that not be correct? It will actually cost the consumer more for the company to make that change because they'll push it onto the consumer.
Well, that's probably true, but what they emphasized at this conference was that, like tires and batteries, there's an end of life. Yeah, the manufacturer will provide some incentive at their expense to provide incentive for those things to come back to them. So they're not just producing it and then it's just wasted, single-use plastic. That means that there's a fee that they would probably pass on, as you do when you buy tires for waste tires or car batteries, maybe even motor oil, and then that would go into a fund to provide grants and subsidies to assist public works departments, sanitation departments, transfer stations, and recycling programs in getting that material processed and not be such a burden on them to ensure that there's a market out there for that material.
The consumer will still be having to pay more in that situation. That doesn't, no matter if the company gets back anything.
That's sort of the rhyme and reason of how it all works, yes. They are passed on, but then it may also have a beneficial way of helping citizens, consumers, to divert their waste diversion, and maybe waste minimization.
Right, it's just kind of leaning on other people to change how they do what they do.
Just no different than not bags at the store now costing a penny or 5 cents and things like that.
Currently, as taxpayers, subsidize the recycling program because there are so many recycled items that are brought to us that are not
Worth anything.
not worth anything. And so each person that never even participates in that doesn't produce any waste. They have to, the taxpayers are paying for that program. So it's already subsidized just by taxpayers.
Yes.
So, okay. So there's a model resolution out there for any other towns that want to follow that lead, and
Right, it wouldn't take place within here. It
It
would be on our
could.
separate towns. So it's not like the board would jump
It,
on.
it could, but it didn't get on the
Single
agenda
towns.
this time. If there's interest in doing it collectively, we could scramble and do that. The other way is just to go to the process that we often use where we recommend things to our towns. Since the way that the NRCM has set it up at this point is that it's a list of towns that have signed on, it might just be the easiest to do it through the towns, but we could also.
I think it'd be more appropriate to do it individually through the towns, actually, so that each town
Then you
could
and
make their own
I don't
decision.
have to argue here all night
I'm not
anyway,
gonna
too,
argue.
so I'm just
saying.
kidding. I'm just-
I mean, so so the transfer station doesn't receive any of this, like, where you have to pay whatever $1 to get rid of your tires when you buy them? You don't get any of that money? Where's that money go? That doesn't come back to the transfer, to Midcoast Solid Waste? You can't put in for, I wonder, where does that go? I
That's
mean,
a state. You're paying
they
that to
don't,
the
and they
state.
they don't reimburse to the,
Well,
Okay.
our tires aren't in that program. Tires that come to our facility go in the compact and they go get
They're
the
burned.
But like paint care, so when you go buy paint, you get charged
Yeah.
75 cents. That gets reimbursed through people that do the collections. They do
Oh,
get
okay.
reimbursement.
Yeah.
And then things like
There she is.
lamps, CFL
Oh, like the
bulbs,
batteries. Did we ever get to the
batteries.
bottom of that with the batteries
Those
and
are
the?
free, but they're free if they're residential. There are actually some commercial now are free as well, up to 10 bulbs a visit. So those programs are set up through the state and they subsidize the direct vendors that help us. So they
okay.
subsidize.
No, that's what I mean, they charge you that
Right.
money.
The
I guess I
battery.
never really knew where it goes.
No, we get free packaging and we package it all up, call UPS, they
Yeah.
come, or FedEx, they come pick it up and off it goes. So, they have some of the programs that are able to be done, we could incur a cost to do some that, like Maine allows other batteries to go in the trash. We'd have to buy a box for that.
I get you.
For commercial. So we work within the outline of the programs through the state.
I mean, and with this one, the proposal is that Midcoast Solid Waste could actually see money when our recycling program is not profitable. And the exact details of how that would happen, I think, are still under consideration, but that's the model that they're trying to pursue.
Mike,
Yes.
if we're still on director and executive committee comments,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to make an announcement about the chair position
Oh.
here? And I have a comment about something has to take place on a future agenda. item,
Well,
so-
yeah, I mean, this kind of all I just assumed we'd take care of that like at the next meeting.
Okay, but something has to go on the agenda.
Yeah,
There has to be an agenda election
Yeah.
under the bylaws.
Right.
There has
And
to
I
be
don't
an
know,
election.
what about the treasurer? Are you gonna?
Well, I've had a few discussions, both with the manager and with a small group of peers right before this. I wasn't exactly prepared to talk about it right
I didn't want to put
right
you on the
now.
spot,
I mean,
but it does
I think
have to be.
we did make, I didn't do the resigning over email. Baridi really encouraged me to try to stay on. We had a grid finance committee meeting. I'm still not sure that I'm the best person. I am a little bit worn out, I think, like everybody is. But if the board and the manager feel that I'm helpful at this point, I am willing to delay any action for a couple.
I feel you're
months.
invaluable as our
I didn't know
as
if we're
Midcoast
gonna
treasurer.
be looking for two positions here, or
So my only point in raising it is
Yeah.
that we need to, because any resignations in officers under the bylaws that occur with more than 120 days left for the next election, we need to have an election of officers, and so that needs to be properly noticed
okay.
and everything on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah,
Is-
we can
how
do
does
that
it
on the
work?
next agenda.
Isn't there some sort of an automatic process that also happens with the resignation of a chair?
Only if it's within 120 days before. Well, if it's less than 120 days before you have the next election, then it's kind of like, no big deal, right? But if it's more than 120 days, you have to have an election. That's my reading of the bylaws. Everybody
Okay, I
is
haven't
welcome to
reviewed
look
that.
at the bylaws.
No, I
but
haven't
that
looked
was
at that
my,
part recently, but there
reading.
must be some, obviously, just when the chair isn't here, it's automatically the vice chair that,
Well, as an acting, but the vice chair does not
I don't know
actually
what, I thought.
go into that
I
position
thought
of the
Owen was gonna
bylaws.
stay until this was the meeting he was supposedly gonna.
right, that was what was going to happen.
Yes.
But-
They couldn't get here tonight.
Well, I don't
Anyway.
think it was that he couldn't get here tonight.
And
I think he
guess if it's
couldn't.
you told him he didn't have to do it at a meeting, he could.
He doesn't have to do it in a meeting, he just send
Well,
an
there was supposed to be a
email.
letter, but, oh, he did, right, he did
I
send.
know he did, because I suggested send an email or a letter, it doesn't have
Oh,
to be
yeah.
at a meeting.
So
You
anyway,
just
yeah,
have to
no,
notify the
I
board.
did plan on doing that in the next agenda.
So shouldn't he be shouldn't it be noticed to the public that, I mean, in some way officially at this meeting, that now Mike is the chair and I'd rather not leave that
He's the
hanging.
vice chair, and he acts as the
Right,
chair.
right now, but I'm not officially the
But he
chair, it needs to be
cannot
voted
be
in.
he's not officially the chair unless there's an election to vote him or somebody
Yeah.
in as
That
the
would have had to
chair.
be on an agenda, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Correct, it has to be correctly noticed on an agenda.
But he can be treated as the chair for
The
every
interim.
single.
In the interim, yeah.
So to be clear, under director and executive comments, you're announcing that it is announced that Owen Casas has resigned his chair position for Midco Solid Waste. Okay.
Yeah, not as director, just as chair.
And Mike Brown, vice chair, is the acting chair until said election takes place. Okay.
Very well
That's fine.
stated, yeah.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Well, yeah, that
I
takes
think
care
you're
of
going to
that.
be great, and I appreciate that you're doing it, and,
I'm trying. Like I said, the whole agenda, I did, that was my
was quite
plan,
a,
but I
like-
hadn't got that far yet. So, all right, anything else? We'll get something with Matt's charitable donation.
Yes, and this is something that our treasurer brought forward, and I think that it was a good move to be as open and transparent as possible.
Yeah.
I didn't know her, but the Sandy Carney was a former administrative
sorry, Sandy Carey.
Carey. Oh, so I misspelled her name then, okay. Carey was employed with Midcoast as administrative assistant and recently passed. And the employees and staff took up $100, and we wanted to get the board's approval to match the $100 from funds from Midcoast budget. I think that our current administrative assistant, Beth, was really instrumental in trying to get this to go forward and provide a match for a donation to the main health care at-home services, which is, I think, the family wanted to see.
I thought it was
funds.
Sussman House.
The Sussman House,
Yeah.
it's through the Waldo Healthcare, which is Penn Bay's where Sussman House is. But it was a collaborative request by the employees that if they gave a certain amount of money in, would the company match it? So we brought it forward to the prior chairman, who thought it was an in-house issue. So once our donation went in and we got our letter back to have, the amount matched, we sent that forward.
Yeah, and I think we just looked at it, Brady and I were going over it, especially since as I was signing warrants and looking at this $100, donation match to another organization, and seeing like, okay, that's a pretty small amount, but do we really have a policy about making donations to other organizations? The idea is, great. Sandy was the manager of the Belfast transfer station as well. She actually served on this board for a period of time also. They all, the employees got together and raised money to donate to the charity of her family's choice. And so it's a common thing for a place of business to match a donation like that. But it seemed like the best thing to do was, rather than just take it out of the community projects fund, was just to bring it to the board instead and see if it's something that the board could support. My recommendation is that we would do that.
So you need a motion to do that?
Yes, I think that's the proper thing to do, since it doesn't fall into one of our traditional budget items. That it would, just also for Baridi was on the fence too, like, oh, is this my decision or is this a board decision?
Well,
and I do think it's a gray area, but we just decided together that it might be the best.
Well, and one thing I just found out tonight, I didn't realize the previous chairman had already said it was something that could be done in-house.
Yes,
I was not aware of that.
Right.
And on
so
the
when,
agenda,
and
we
I
took it
had,
off
when
the
I called Beth, I'd heard that, but it was like I'm not going to call him right now, and I don't know.
I mean,
yeah,
we
I
can
do
short
think
circuit all this by making a motion, or do we need
think-
to have a motion? I mean,
we need to have a motion. That's the
Well,
that's
then
the idea,
somebody
and
should
it's
make a
nice for the
motion.
board to support it too. It gives us a chance to actually take ownership of it. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
that's great.
I would move that we match the employee contribution of $100 to the Sussman House in memory of Sandy Carey.
Okay.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so that's that. Midcoast solid work from home procedure.
Yes, I'm asking, wanting to inform the board and get feedback from the board about informal policy that would be used very rarely and would go away. In my haste to get here from Maryland and try to orchestrate living arrangements, rental from 600 miles away, the best I could do for a long-term rental unfurnished in August was to find something in Harpswell down by Brunswick, which places me 60 miles away from Rockport. It is not the board's fault. It's all on me. The issue I'm asking is that on this past Tuesday, last Tuesday, I had to use 4 hours of my vacation time because I couldn't make it in. I was actually due to go up to PERT to do a tour and of their facility, and they called and told me not to come because they were an hour delayed opening because of the ice roads. The issue with me living on Orr's Island is that they didn't start sanding the roads until afternoon, so I couldn't even get out. And I was just wondering, I was able to deal with emails, phone calls, and staff issues and make decisions while at the house. And I do have a laptop, and a lot of my work, as I explained here, is done at my desk and my computer. And I was just wondering if, in the event that something like that similar were to occur, where the roads were a little hazardous and dangerous, could I function as the manager outside of my office and still be able to give command decisions, follow up with customers, clients, vendors, employees, staff, board members, even though I'm not actually in my office, and not have to use my accrued vacation time to cover each time that I couldn't get here because of weather and road conditions. And I just thought I'd just...
Do you have remote access?
Yes.
I would like to,
I have a
refer
laptop
this to the.
that I use on my desk that I can take with me. I have Wi-Fi, I have printer.
And you can remote into the server at?
Oh, no, it's all on my laptop. I can communicate with anyone here.
Yeah, yeah.
With
So it's just like a laptop that we might have at home then?
yes,
It's not
yes.
like a.
But it's all Midcoast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's what I work from at work in my office now. It's just plugged into a desktop monitor, but I can unplug it and take it with me.
I just wondered if
Yes.
you had remote access to like, you probably have remote access to work from home, I would assume? Yeah, okay. I just don't think that's.
I mean, there are different ways of setting that up. I think in general, I would like to refer this to the Personnel Committee to understand the policy of when it counts that you're working, and in general, I would say that you're a salaried employee, and so your job generally is just to get your job done, and that is definitely going to entail sometimes working from other places. You're the manager no matter where you are. If you're at home, you're still in charge of making the decisions about the facility opening.
Absolutely. I don't work by the seat of my pants.
Right,
I
so
can make the
certainly,
command
we
decision
wouldn't want
from
you to
anywhere.
feel like you couldn't make decisions when you're not directly at the facility. But the nitty-gritty of how vacation time is accrued and all of that, and it seems like that has come up a few times in terms of confusion, and that the Personnel Committee should look and understand, okay, this is what the policy is, this is what, so that would be my recommendation, is that.
I think
But
that's.
the
a good
Personnel Committee chair might want to.
Head of the Personnel Committee, right?
Well, I think it would be a good idea, you know, I'm just going to throw this out there for kicks and grins for other people's opinions. Would it be a good idea to have, if Brady conditions warrant the fact that he feels, and it's his call on that, not be safe to drive in, would it be reasonable for him to contact the chair and just say, hey, I'm not going to be able to do it today, just, you know, and I'm not saying that you would do this.
No,
but
I
I'm
haven't
just
written
throwing-
here
I'm just
to
throwing it for kicks
inform
and
the
grins.
board.
You know, if it's bright and sunny up here and 80 degrees and you can't make it because it's snowing down there, we have a problem. You know, and I know
Absolutely.
you wouldn't do that, but I mean, just
I even mentioned-
a check and balance written in.
Well, I was thinking that under my own discretion, one day I may have to notify my staff because of the condition.
Yep.
But if it's more than one day, I believe I should notify the board.
Yep.
And the board should confirm.
I think as long as you notified somebody, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because it can be noted, you know, the time and that kind of thing, so we know that.
Well, I will
as long
add
as
this.
It's not abused. I don't know what is there policy even on that kind of thing?
Well,
Right. That's what I'd like to know
Yeah,
about.
I don't know.
policy on that, and so I agree with Allison that I think that the Personnel Committee, I mean, I think that everybody's probably inclined to, you know, allow this to some degree, but the Personnel Committee should definitely make sure we have a policy on exactly how it's implemented.
You know,
Well,
abused.
Well, what I did was I took that vacation day with no issues whatsoever, no kicks, but I was dealing with so much corporate business that I wasn't going to say, well, I'm on vacation. I mean, I expect to be at work.
Yeah.
I'm using my vacation, but I'm still doing corporate work. So I turned it from 8 hours to 4 hours because I spent 3.5 hours on the phone and doing emails. I mean,
Why does it
because I
matter
wasn't
exactly
in the
how
office.
much time you work? And this is where I don't.
This is why I'm saying
You're a
that.
salaried employee, so-
I'm burning my vacation time to conduct corporation business, which I can
Because the
conduct from
policy doesn't
anywhere.
currently allow, so does the policy currently say that if you're not at the facility, then you're not working?
No. It's just what you said. When I was at the conference for all day in
Right.
Bangor, I was still talking with staff and still dealing with business, still answering emails,
Right.
still responding. But I just felt that because I couldn't drive in, then I'd send an email to Beth saying, I have to take a vacation day because I can't get out.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think.
I still did all my work as if I was sitting at my desk.
Well, I think the conversation that needs to go to the Personnel Committee, okay, for vetting and do whatever you've got to do there, and then the conversation of the PTO and whether it should come back to you or not. That's my personal opinion. But I feel, obviously it wasn't your fault, you couldn't get there. I think you did the right thing by calling. I'm not sure you needed to take PTO day because where you are a salaried employee, sometimes your day starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 7 p.m. Sometimes your day starts at 9 and ends at 3. So as
Well-
long as the work gets done and it's done satisfactorily. So I think for conversation piece, I think this needs to be moved on to the Personnel Committee, and then they'll make their recommendation. And they may not even have to. They may be able to take care of it within them.
Well,
Find if there is a policy, make a policy.
I just wanted to add that that's exactly how I've worked throughout my career. But what's different here is that I cannot accrue compensatory
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
whereas I could throughout my whole career.
Yep.
And as an executive department head, here I cannot. So if I don't, if I have to make the adjustments between those 5 days,
Yeah.
and I can't carry anything over. So that's where I had to use a vacation day because I didn't have the compensatory time. You're right. My day begins and ends when it begins and ends.
Yeah. And,
But
and so,
I'm locked into this 40-hour thing, so
yeah.
if I,
Personnel Committee.
Yeah.
Let's not belabor it any
Okay.
longer, please, because it
So
belongs
just
before
take
the
that to
Personnel
personnel,
Committee.
to the personnel.
Here all night. Sorry.
managers?
Yeah,
Oh,
you're still on the spot
Okay.
there. Manager's report.
Snowing and getting icky out.
All right, well, let me-
So, another reason.
Be here at the town office if you need to, if it's not.
Oh, no, do you tell me, because wasn't this informal?
I was just
This is a
joking about,
workshop?
she said it's snowing, and so I was like,
Oh, she's here now. We're all good to go.
Okay. Midcoast quarterly report, the C&D landfill sales report, it was due for July, August, September. That was completed. We sent a check for $1364.12, and that was received. I do have something I need to get some feedback on, and that was the closing of Midcoast Solid Waste on November 2nd, on Saturday, without my knowledge or authorization. And, of course, it was the busiest day of our week. And staff members took it upon themselves to supersede my authority and then decided that they were going to go in a different direction. And this was with the knowledge of the former chairman of the board, who also did not inform me and who denies that he gave permission. But we had issues with employees being upset with me because they weren't paid overtime, time and a half for the full 8 hours, because some employees were told to stay home and they got 8 hours straight. And then other employees, I understand, came to work or volunteered to come to work, and they could only be paid, in my mind, for the actual hours worked, but it was still less than 40 hours, so they didn't get it at time and a half.
I'm a little bit nervous about some of these conversations happening here.
Yeah.
I feel like this might be another one, just straight to the Personnel Committee.
I'm thinking, Baridi, this needs to go right to the Personnel Committee.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why or whatever, why the place was closed down without you knowing it, but.
Oh, no.
Let's not get into it. Personnel Committee.
But that's your decision. So, but I think this, your feedback will come from the Personnel Committee, and you'll get straightforward direction on that.
Okay, great.
If it needs any board action, then the Personnel Committee can bring it back to us.
Yeah.
But
Okay. I only bring it up because the ordinance says that only the manager has that authority, unless
But
they move.
I think the
it's better
Personnel
not to
Committee.
air, hash things out in
Okay.
this kind of environment.
The next thing is the MERV facility, employees restroom. That was already, bid was received in January of this year, and that work was completed. And you can just read the notes there. It's done a lot for personnel as far as it relates to the cleaner bathroom and more sanitary conditions. Right now, today, our baler was struck by one of our employees, struck it with a forklift and caused some damage. That baler was shut down today. We had some contingencies in place, didn't cause any real disruptions to our operations, and we expect we'll have the baler back and running fully tomorrow. On the back, I have remote displays for the weight scale. Right now, we only have a LED readout at the wait for the weights for our customers that are at the guardhouse that our attendants can see, and citizens when they're on the scale cannot see what their gross and net weights are. And we've had some disputes about them coming back from the landfill and being charged and then disputing that they were that heavy. So I felt like we should have wireless readouts, LED, right under the red and green lights that stop and go, facing away from the the guardhouse and facing back towards for traffic two-way, so the customer on the scale can see their weight, both gross and tear, or net weight. And I have a quote to get that done, and it's within my discretion to have it done, and we're going to put that in place. The power's already there. We have a direct line of sight to the gatehouse, so we'll have those lights up, and I think that'll be an added convenience for our customers, especially the commercial ones, to see what their true weights are. And I think that would help minimize any disputes.
Just a quick question on that, a similar note. Do we know if there was a period of time where there were some discrepancies with the actual scale, and things were wrong, and I had a bunch of people come and tell me about it, and then when I mentioned it at the facility, it was a known issue, and
Well, the scale is calibrated.
Yeah.
And it,
Right,
and it has to be state certified.
Yeah.
And it isn't,
I mean, there have been,
We had a new electrical box put on it.
okay.
because it was like, oh, when it's cold sometimes, that issue is all gone now?
Wind will also
Wind,
affect the
cold, it was like
scale,
cold,
snow.
heat, wind, and something else can,
But we had that box replaced.
great.
So as far as I know, it's been
Yes, yes.
good. It's good to be calibrated.
Yes,
and
it's
things by the end
great.
of the year.
Yes.
How often, is there a regular schedule of recalibration?
Well, there's a regular schedule of maintenance, and yes, yes. But if we ever have any issue with the weights, they'll come right on out and recalibrate and check the scale.
So you wait for a discrepancy as opposed to they have a regular routine that they
Well, it's a regular maintenance, but if the scale is functioning, it's functioning. And its design is such that would be rare that.
They don't have to calibrate that like once a year?
Don't they do it once a year or something? I think there's.
I'm not sure what the state of Maine does in that regard.
So we used to do it twice a year, but we only do it once a year now with our new vendor.
Where I've been, it's once a year, and then that way, for your certification, you can show that you've been calibrated.
wanted to know that
Yes.
frequency.
It's twice a year, but now it's once a year?
Right, we have a
Okay.
vendor come once a year, and then also the state can come anytime they want. They've been there once since I've been there.
Yeah,
But
and verify
they also
verify.
stepped it up a little
Yes.
last couple of years. And then we do our monitors, and so they're getting a little bit obsolete. So, initially with the transfer station change, we thought, we might be making a change with the scales. So now it's going to be an idea of, how long can the equipment last? It needs to be looked at. But it's running fine right now, and the newest vendor says that it's okay.
Yes. The next thing is hiring full-time. We had two part-time employees, personnel, one to resign and one is given notice of their intention to resign on the 4th of December. And that's Davis, works for Scrap Dogs. He's been there, works in the gatehouse. With the two of those individuals leaving, I'm in a situation to where I need to advertise and try to see if I can get those positions replaced. And in addition to asking or bringing to the board's attention that we need to have some staffing, I'd like to go away from part-time to full-time staffing. I can do that. So I wasn't sure if that took a vote or did I just need to.
So those both part-time?
Yeah, yes. One was an operator, Pat, and then Davis was a cashier/operator. But what I really need is a cashier. And I'm thinking that with the two of those positions, I can hire one full-time person.
Yeah, that's what I was
And it would be fine. I don't need to hire two people. I only need to hire one person, but I want that one person to be full-time. And those two positions, I think the salaries are adequate to cover the compensation.
The health, so it's just going to come down to a budget decision, I would say, in the long run, and figuring out just telling us what the cost difference is going to be, I imagine, with health insurance. That'll,
Right. Yep.
I think it's mostly going to be a cost thing. If it's a budget increase, then make sure you budget for it, and we can.
Right, true, because that's one thing with full-time, you'll have the benefits with the part-time.
Well, the fact that I have the seasonal and I have, 4 other part-time employees, and we're going into this time of year, I will look at those numbers, but I wasn't quite sure, do I get approval from the board before I advertise for the position, or I get all that information, then bring it back before the board, and then get a yay or nay?
I mean, you should it should be a pretty quick calculation, the difference in cost. So you can kind of look at it, are you looking at a major difference in cost or is it, under $10,000? Is it something small that you anticipate being able to move around in the budget, but it would be a shame for you to advertise for something and then not realize that it was going to create a $25,000 budget difference that maybe the board wasn't prepared to.
Well, no,
we understand the position that you're in. It's
I was going to do all of
issue.
those things first. What I'm saying is, before I advertise, I'll have all my ducks in a row as far as what I can pay, what the salary would be, what the hours would be. I didn't know necessarily what the mechanism was for doing that.
You might want to start advertising and see what's
I
out
think,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
as long as
think
it's in
if
the
I were
budget,
to-
if you get the money in the
Yeah.
budget. that'd be
You've got
great.
money in the budget right now for 2
Yeah.
part-timers. I would
Right.
advertise for a part-timer with the enos that it might turn full-time. And that at least gets you one person in the door. And when it turns full-time, hey, this is what I've got, this is a full-time position. Are you in? If not, I got to move in a different direction, that type of thing. Get yourself some help that's already budgeted for. It's not 2 people, but it's at least one person. And make sure that person knows right up front that there's a good possibility this is going to turn into a full-time gig. And
All right, well, I'll do that because
because you don't need any permission to do that.
I mean, I forgot that it's this.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking about
Right,
next year. It
it's
is
this
this
budget.
fiscal year. So
Right.
really what you just need to do is look and see how much, where we're tracking and how much money we have. And
Yes, that part I got covered. I just didn't know, do I?
If we're going to
just-
overspend a line, then you would have to come.
Yes,
to the
yeah,
board.
I didn't plan to do that, but I wanted to
enough
advertise
money.
full-time as an incentive for someone to come on
I
board.
see.
As long as you can pay, you just have to look at the budget and how much money we have left.
Yeah, again, that's not the question I'm
If you
asking.
can do it within the budget, I do not believe you need our authority to
That's what I
advertise.
wanted to know.
No,
He's thinking of
if
the
the money's in the
channels,
budget.
the channels to go.
Right.
That's all I was asking.
Out of ignorance, for lack of any better way of doing it, does the fact that you're a part union shop make any difference on this? Do you need to tell the union that you want to do this and that what you're doing, and do you have to?
It does.
when you
They have to
advertise,
be
Say
union.
whether they're going to be union or non-union, or I mean, I've never.
No,
done
that's a
anything
good
with
point.
unions, so I
The
don't
Teamsters have.
know. I'm ignorant.
Well, I've been educated. The Teamsters are telling me that that's a job that only a Teamster can hold
Okay.
as a cashier. And the only way they can be covered by the union is to be full-time.
Okay.
Well, maybe we've brought ourselves back to another personnel committee.
I mean, that's why I'm. That's
Oh,
why
'cause
I'm
I-
asking
that is
these
a
things,
very,
because
very
I
good
need-
question, and I don't think we
need to
should
get my
just
hands
listen to
around
the
it, so I
teams.
know
I
what
mean-
I ask the right
Right,
questions.
but for me, before I pull the trigger on doing anything, I want to know if I can in fact pay someone full-time. Because I have a person who already can subsidize in the scale house, and I can do something else. I can use a part-time person as an operator.
Okay.
I don't, and use my full-time people who's already union in that scale house. I just didn't know if I had to get approval to even advertise for a part-time or full-time position from the board. Yeah, that was the only question I had. Okay.
You don't nothing in that hiring violates any of the agreements that Midcoast Solid Waste has, and we can't.
Well, yes,
like,
that goes without saying.
Right, so, and what we are saying too is that we don't have 100% perfect knowledge of, every
Non-union thing.
state and labor law that might be, I think.
Yes,
if you know,
it would
then
be
no.
my charge to have that knowledge.
Absolutely, right.
Okay, that's all I had in the manager's report.
There you go. All right. Move down to Strategic and Capital Planning Committee.
So even though I'm not the chair of that committee, I did put together a one-page report just to let you know that we
Did
did
everybody
meet.
get a copy of that?
Oh, that was you.
Yes,
I was wondering.
we did meet November 13th at the Rockport Town Office. It tells who was listed that was in attendance. I'm not going to get into the details and all the weeds of everything that we talked about, but we did come out of that meeting with a priority list of what we need to do as a committee to look at. And we certainly are more than happy to add more items to it if the board has other items to add to it, and these are kind of wide-ranging topics. But we put these in order of priority of the waste hauling contract to look at first, disposal contracts, buildings, equipment, infrastructure, and then options for construction and demolition debris. We did set another meeting for December 11th at 4:30 in the manager's conference room at the Rockport Town Office. Of course, anybody's welcome to attend that. And the manager has been tasked with gathering some information and providing that to the committee before that meeting, like a week before that meeting, so that we can have, yes, so that we can have the information to review it and be prepared at that meeting to be able to discuss the waste hauling contracts. And then the goal for the committee is to bring recommendations forward to the full board of directors on these different topics as we work through them.
Great. What'd you say about the trailer?
That, like he said, that's some of these are broad.
Yep.
The waste hauling contract is also going to include trailer
Right. Trailer
conversations, the whole 9 yards.
But are you guys comfortable with that being taken out of the budget?
We don't know yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
The first meeting was just to set our priorities. And then the next meeting, we're going to be talking about the waste hauling contract because it
Right,
obviously
the
has a
money.
major
We're
impact.
actually gonna have some, he's gonna get us some figures,
Yes.
you know, comparing straight truck kind of thing, so.
just in terms, like, should we carry that forward from last year or what the?
I would.
For now, I would.
Yeah.
Okay.
For now.
But we meet on December 11th,
Yeah.
and so we'll have a recommendation based on that before the finance
Before the
and before the
18th
budget.
meeting.
Yeah.
So we'll have a decision or a recommendation based on that.
Right.
That was the
So
goal,
that-
to try to get that in there before.
Right.
We know we're pushing it late. I had asked,
Oh, no, you're doing great. That's
I had
great.
asked about, and I had asked about a strategic plan that existed before. There isn't one, so we're kind of,
We've had some reports drawn up over the years.
yeah, but they're just not. it's not
Yeah,
a
right. Oh,
true
yeah, no.
Strategic and capital plan, which is what we're working on.
Great, yeah.
So,
Yay.
but you'll have to be patient
I
with
think
us.
that was the
because we have
first
a lot
time
of
that
stuff
board would
to-
get together, in what, 4 months?
4 months.
A lot of work to do, so just be patient with us.
It's just
It was a
to
well-run
know
meeting.
that that's been taken out of the budget. Did we, because that's $70,000 that we were gonna,
We will let,
Do you understand? We'll have
I would
we'll have
leave
a
it there for right now.
recommendation before the 18th.
and I think it's been taken out already, so.
Oh, it did?
Well, we'll
Well,
have that recommendation.
it's not taken out, it's in the 2020 budget. I'm
Oh,
comparing the
yeah. Oh, okay.
2021 budget.
Right.
I'm just saying that I didn't have an intention to
Right.
put it out for bid and spec and.
But we're supposed to vote at the end of every fiscal year whether what's carried forward and what just goes into the unassigned fund balance. And so we just have to, I don't know when.
Deal with it on the 18th when we get a recommendation from these guys.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's making me think about the other things that maybe didn't get.
Oh, in
Done.
year-
What
in
else?
years past.
Well, just, why didn't we do that? Why hasn't that come to us?
Steps, baby steps.
Right.
Like, what?
We're good.
No, you are correct.
It's gonna be like in a few years, well, what is this $70,000? And, somebody's gonna be untangling
I
something.
correct what you're saying, but this, we're
Okay,
working
sorry.
on getting that stuff straightened out.
We will.
So,
And with that, I have to leave. I'm half hour late now, so.
Do we have to vote on
Can
anything?
you, we need to vote on the minutes.
minutes.
Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes, the board minutes from the meeting November 7th, 2019, as written.
Second.
One date, right?
Oh, it was on the agenda.
Just need
Oh,
to change on this.
as- Right,
Sorry, okay.
as,
Yep, just
as
double
amended.
checking.
So-
And I abstain because I wasn't here.
So, all those in favor? Just one abstaining.
2 abstentions.
Yes.
Oh,
Wendy and
sorry,
Deborah.
excuse me.
Well, here we go.
Thank you for allowing that out of order.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just have to vote to adjourn, all in our, we'll just have to,
Continue in the workshop.
Not to let him go.
right, we're gonna be
After.
stuck in our meeting because we can't vote to.
Yeah.
Hang Finance Committee?
Yeah, we're gonna move on to the finance committee.
You've all heard quite a bit from the Finance Committee and the
Yeah.
treasurer. If anybody else has comments that I missed, then fine, but
Governance committee?
Governance Committee, we met, and, we're continuing, you may recall, in the last meetings, we had identified some of the things that we thought might be problematic in the intergovernmental agreement and in the bylaws, and then I was given an editable version of the intergovernmental agreement and the bylaws, and so what we're doing is we're annotating that. So, the bylaws are the bylaws and the interlocal agreement is the interlocal agreement. But we are annotating different provisions. So those annotations consist of several things. One is to annotate where, for example, state law requires something, so that future boards, future governance committees don't say, oh, well, let's go change that. Well, you had to change state law first,
Oh, yeah.
So it's that kind of thing to show the source of, and it's this whole issue we had of what kind of, entity are we legally and everything, and that's all been determined, and so that is recorded in these annotations. So that's one purpose of the annotations on these two documents. The second purpose is for us to make recommendations as a governance committee to the board on things that ought to be changed, that we think might be changed on both of those, knowing that, of course, any changes to the intergovernmental agreement have to go before the four towns, and to the bylaws the board can do. So anyway, and a lot of those annotations are, those things that we've been working on the last few meetings of the problems we see, those are folded into these annotations. So it's going to take a few more meetings, but ultimately what we'll have is this annotated agreement, interlocal agreement, annotated bylaws with recommendations of what the governance committee suggests the board consider for changes.
Oh, yeah, and that's stuff that, as far as changes, you mean you have to go back to the towns to change
Or
the way
in
things
the
are wrote in there?
bylaws.
Yeah.
In the case of the bylaws, the board can just approve it.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have in there the source of those provisions, like I said, whether it's statutorily required or whether, like if you want to make a change to the bylaws, well, it will tell us whether we can make a change to the bylaws,
Yeah.
whether we can make that change to the bylaws, because if it's in the interlocal agreement, you can't unless you take it to the four towns.
Oh, yeah.
So it will track all of those things to make it very clear, hopefully, for the board, what they can and can't change, authority-wise.
Yeah.
And then highlight for the board policy issues that should be addressed on whether they do want to make certain changes.
Good.
do you think that possibly, since one thing that we have very clear is that this board has the authority to change the requirement that the town managers, that two town managers be here in order for there to be a quorum, and because there seems to be broad agreement that this is problematic, would it be worth it to try to solve that problem right away? All we'd have to do is put it on make the revision, put it on an agenda for the next meeting, and we could vote on it and at least have that one problem.
It's true. We can,
I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
It's nice to make all the changes at once, but of course, if it creates issues for the next few board meetings in the interim, we can accelerate certain
Do you
things.
know why that was ever put in place in the first place?
It's not required by interlocal agreement or by state law, so this board has the ability to properly notice it and change it.
I think that it was probably put in there because lots of things had gone wrong, and there was a feeling that the safety net, of the town managers being there was necessary because of, various things. But I think at this point, we have really committed to being a board that is taking it seriously, and that we should be able to make the decision on our own. We all can decide, let's just wait and not vote on X, Y, or Z until we can get some input from our executive committee or town managers. But Like tonight, it was just a perfect example of.
If we want to accelerate that issue, then that's something that we can take up in the December meeting, make a recommendation, and then it could be on the January agenda to change that provision. And then, and there might be something
It could
else
be
that
on
we
the
may
agenda
decide.
for December to change. I mean, we could vote, it would be a very quick couple words edit, and that could be on the agenda for December 18th, and we could vote on it then. I mean, people are free to vote
Well,
no.
I mean, right, well, you can just skip over the governance committee and put it on the agenda.
Oh, I feel like
Well, you
I
are
wasn't.
skipping over the governance committee because the governance committee hasn't taken any action at the governance committee level to change it. So you've
Oh,
had
I guess I thought I
skipping
heard
over
you
the
say that you
governance
felt it
committee.
was a,
Well, yeah, we haven't taken any votes or done, I mean, everything is draft that we have right now, so,
oh,
I mean, either way, but,
yeah, I know if you have a strong preference for talking about it again,
there might
I'm
be,
to my-
there might be, if we're going to accelerate a couple of things, there might be a couple of things we might want to accelerate that we could discuss in December, and we could have draft language at the end of that meeting
Yeah.
in December, which could go, boom, right on to the January agenda.
yeah, there probably are just a couple other things that chair of the Strategic and Capital Planning Committee, for example, if it works out.
Anything else?
No.
Good. Yeah, we'll move on to the financials. Anybody get any questions? Comments on that? Anybody had a chance to look them over? All good?
I have not looked them over carefully.
I just want to make a note that one of our larger purchases of bags has made a substantial payment this week.
Oh, yeah.
So that's come way down. We worked on that. It worked out well.
Baridi, is this something that you monitor the year-to-date stuff as part of your process?
Responsibilities, yes.
Or is there, one thing that we get in Camden every so often is a report from the finance director, which I'm not suggesting that that's what we would do here, but it is an exceptions report. So we get, along with this big printout, there's just a little paragraph from, I think in this case it would be from the manager, that says everything is tracking well, except for X, Y, and Z. Or, sometimes they're, just to, it's nice to see from time to time the professional opinion on where we are, because sometimes if it's just left up to all of us to be like,
That's not given every
would
quarter?
you, your,
That's not given every quarter by the manager?
I don't think we have a set schedule where the manager is supposed to give a financial update. It would be part of, we have monthly board meetings, so I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that there's a process in place so that when we get to financials, we know what to expect during that time. Sometimes all the board just sits around and looks at each other, but I guess I would like to maybe
Well,
request.
I'm accustomed to giving those reports every quarter. I can do that.
That
Sure,
would be
that
fine.
makes sense if that works for everyone.
That'd be fine.
And it doesn't need to be anything big, but just,
You could just add it to your manager's report, couldn't you?
Right,
Just add a
right.
finance subsection to your manager's
You do that
report that
quarterly.
says, here's the deal.
Once a month?
Or quarterly, or
Quarterly.
whatever.
Okay.
if something comes up in between the quarters.
That would go in anyway.
Right, but,
You can just put that in your manager's report.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel, but in terms of the manager's report, I like the fact that we get the manager's report and we can read it, and I assume we all, read it, but we've kind of changed our practice in Rockport, streamlined it a little bit so that you don't have to go through everything that's in the manager's report. So you say, well, the directors have all read it, and then that's your opportunity for the directors to ask you questions about anything that's in the manager's report. Or if there's something that is really significant, like the full-time employee, you still raise it, but you don't have to go through every single thing that's in your manager's report.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Verbally. Now, that's that's what we're
because we do
doing in
that
Rockport,
at the
we
league.
like it, and so I just want
Oh,
to
you-
get a
you-
sense.
you
that
like-
At the Rockport Select Board, we like doing it that way, more streamlined now, so I'm just suggesting that if other board members feel the same way, you don't necessarily have to go through everything verbally that's in your report.
As long as the report continues to come and we can all view it, then
Right, we can bring
it
up
still
the
is an agenda item, and if there's something that, like the
Sticks
employment
out,
thing,
yeah.
sticks out, obviously you bring
If I'm
that
looking
up.
for guidance
But
or-
that's the chance for the chair to say, are there any questions on the manager's report?
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean,
yeah, that's great.
No?
in
Sounds good.
Camden and Rockport, I think both towns have the practice of sending those reports to the press as well, which is something that we don't do here. Sometimes we've stepped back a little bit in Camden, and instead of just, we had kind of stopped having Otter say everything in the meeting, and we went back to it a little bit more just from a public knowing what's going on point of view. Our manager reports are a tiny bit different.
Okay, I never
Here,
did
so-
those before. I only did agenda items when I had an agenda before the city council and board that needed their approval and vote. Other than that, I never gave managers reports or department director.
And I think a happy medium between you say a little bit, but you don't have to feel the pressure to say everything, but also keeping in mind that sometimes it is just good to bring it up verbally in the
Yes.
meeting for the benefit of,
And
Anybody who
it would
might be
also help me
listening.
to understand sort of what the parameters, some of this, I don't even know if the board even is interested in knowing about. It's just regular operational stuff.
Well, sometimes it's just nice to, like I say, but like Pat said, if we read it, and then if we had any further questions, we could bring it up at the meeting. It's still, I think, getting the written
Including it
part
is
so that we can
important.
see it.
I'm sorry?
Like, including it in the packet. would be-
Yes,
I like
I
it. I
wasn't,
think you've been doing a
wasn't
good job.
sure how detailed, I mean,
I thought your manager's
I think you've
report
been
was
doing
good,
well.
You know,
Good job
but I
with
mean, the
it.
fact that we
More
read
details,
about
we'll ask.
we read about the employee's bathroom, it's great that the employee's bathroom was upgraded, and we know that we budgeted for that, but I don't feel that you need to talk about that during the meeting, I mean, it's just one example.
yes,
But in
yes.
general, I feel that the level of your
Glad to get that guidance
manager's
and
reports have
feedback.
been good. You've been, that's, you're about on target, in my opinion, in terms of what you present to us, and
Yeah.
I think they've been nice, so.
I see what Pat's saying, just to help the meeting go, you don't have to tell the whole thing again, everybody's read it, then, I would say, just bring up, ask the board if they have any questions, and, that kind of thing. Sounds good.
Will do.
So are we still on financials?
Yeah, we're past
I,
it now, right?
you know something, I need a brief explanation as to why, on our accounts receivable agent summary, I need an explanation as to why Hannaford Brothers owes us $45,000, including current, and it continues to go up, and they're 90 days plus.
Just commented on that.
Well, you didn't say the name. You-
Well,
Well, I'm sorry. Well,
it is Hannaford.
whatever.
And we did, I had contacted them and asked about it, and then I work with a woman in Center. They were missing some receipts. So I sent her what we had, and she reviewed it and sent a large check. $26,500 was paid this week. It just
You
isn't
tried to say that so
reflected.
delicately at the beginning, Beth. It was like, no, but it was in
Well, I
code.
don't like to call out
You were too
people.
cautious. It was hard, so it,
Well,
not
and
everybody
you know
would pick-
something, I'm sorry, and I'll take my lumps for that.
No.
But it's a lot of money.
It was.
Right.
Yes, it was much more than, and there was a glitch.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
track it very well.
Okay,
So when I sent what
Yeah.
I sent, they sent the check.
Okay.
So
All right. Okay.
So we
I
think that
double
glitch
check
might have
every
been on our
time we
part.
do a bag order, so that we don't miss one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You don't have a question?
And I've followed up with others, so. Yep, I
Everybody all set with that?
appreciate him reading it.
Yeah, I met him.
30 to 60.
We got to go and do executive session.
So you got a motion on it? Motion. I move that we go into executive session pursuant to MRSA Section 4056A to discuss personnel matters.
All those in favor?
And we purposely note, Beth, I noticed in the last minutes that before you went into executive session, there was a motion to adjourn, and then you went into executive session, and I don't think that's the proper procedure. The proper procedure
I was
is,
gonna ask you that.
to do a motion to go into executive session without adjourning this meeting, and then we come out of executive session, and then we adjourn the public meeting. So anyway, it was wrong in the minutes, but I didn't raise it because I wasn't here, and
No,
I
I was,
abstained.
well,
Usually
that's
I
how we usually do it.
Yeah,
I'm going to grab.
you guys do,
We
the
adjourn.
same way I just said.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a really
Yeah, we
great
can't have
question.
executive
Thank
session
you.
without
No,
The
I was
overall meeting,
provided
right.
that information, so I kind of went with what I got, but yes.
okay. Why doesn't everybody start by turning off their microphones? Thank you.